a reminder, all members of council are obligated to declare a conflict of interest or a pecuniary interest as per section 133 of the Lloydminster Charter regarding any item on this agenda. I'll call for any additions or deletions to this agenda. City Clerk.
Yes, Your Worship. If we could move item 6.6.2 to item 6.2, that's the Northeast Area Structure Plan. That would facilitate the presenter's ability to make flights this afternoon.
Any other additions or deletions at this time? Not seeing any, I'll look for council's direction on the adjusted or modified agenda. Councillor Buckingham.
The amended agenda dated January 28, 2019 be approved.
Seconded. Councillor Monroe. Any questions or comments before I call for the question? Not seeing any, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. I'll look to council for direction on the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. Councillor Buckingham.
The regular council minutes dated January 14, 2019 be approved.
Seconded. Councillor Monroe. Any questions or comments before I call for the question? Not seeing any. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 5, business arising from those minutes. Not seeing any noted. Moving on to item 6, new business. I'll look to the city manager.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. To present 6.1.1 supplementary assessment of improvements bylaw, I'll ask Scott Perry to come forward for an assessment of taxation.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Subject matter is bylaw number 01-2019, supplementary assessment of improvements bylaw. The recommendation is that council grant second reading to bylaw number 01-2019, supplementary assessment improvement bylaw, and that council grant third and final reading to bylaw number 01-2019, supplementary assessment improvement bylaw. Our issues the council needs to annually authorize supplementary assessments. Background number, bylaw number 1-2019 received first reading at the January 14, 2019 regular council meeting. To impose a tax on properties that have been substantially completed or further constructed during the current year, which are not fully captured in the current tax levy. Administration needs direction from council to pass a supplementary assessment bylaw authorizing the supplementary assessment to be prepared for the purpose of imposing a tax in that year. Options that council grant bylaw number 1-2019, supplementary assessment and improvement bylaw, second and third reading. This will allow the supplementary assessment for 2019. 2, the council defeat second and third reading of bylaw number 01-2019, supplementary assessment and improvement bylaw. This will not allow for supplementary assessments in 2019, or the council direct administration to bring back further information. Bylaw number 01-2019 will allow for additional tax levies to be collected in the fall of 2019. Pass back to you, Your Worship, for any questions or comments.
Thank you. Questions or comments, council? I believe this was dealt with on the 14th meeting and pretty straightforward. Scott, if I could ask, this is an annual requirement of council. Is there a reason why it's not a standing bylaw?
It's in the MGA that it has to be passed annually, and it has to be passed by May 1st in the year that the tax is imposed.
Okay. So it's a provincial statute that will follow.
That's correct.
Excellent. Any other comments, questions? If not, I'll look for council to give direction on the recommendations.
The council grant second reading of bylaw number 01-2019, supplementary assessment of improvements bylaw.
Seconded. Mr. Baker. Any questions or comments before I call for the question? Not seeing any. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Up to council for recommendation number 2. Councillor Buckingham.
The council grant third and final reading of bylaw number 01-2019, supplementary assessment of improvements bylaw.
Seconded. Councillor Baker. Any further questions or comments? Not seeing any. I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, Scott. Moving on to the amended agenda to 6.6.2, operations. We'll look to the city manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. On the Northeast Area Structure Plan, I'll ask Sam to come up and give a quick introduction, and then from there, ISL will do a presentation to council.
Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon, Sam.
Thanks for giving us room this afternoon. Now, we have a team from Karen. They're coming to make a presentation on the Northeast ASP. ISL, was the consultant chosen for this project, and so we have representing ISL, that's Sue. Sue is going to be coming up, and Mitch. They will be coming here just to give you an overview of the project. That's in terms of what they wrote in the RFP and what's going to be delivered, and then maybe just let you have an idea of what the timeline is for this project to be completed. So I will turn it over to Sue.
Good afternoon, Sue. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and members of council. Mitch Braun, my associate, and I are very pleased to be here. We're quite excited about starting on this new project, and it's a pleasure to be here to speak with you today. Let's see, is there... Oh, sure. No, can I just click here? Okay, to jump right in here, of course, the project purpose, I think, is something that we need to keep front and center as we go through this, and this is to develop a plan for the Northeast area, and something that will ensure that there's logical, integrated, and balanced development in the future. So there's a number of things that we need in order to do that, and of course, they're listed here. I'm not going to read through them all because of course they're right in front of you, but it's going to take a team to do this. It's not just one person's opinion to come in. And at the end of the day, we were talking with your team here this morning, and at the end of the day, this plan is your plan. It's not ISL's plan, it's not Sue's plan, this is yours plan. And so part of the exercise moving forward, we have the multidisciplinary approach, we have planners, engineers, environmental people, engagement people. We will all be working together and listening to what you have to say and what the stakeholders have to say moving forward, so we can come up with the best plan at the end of the day that will accomplish the project purpose. Keep in mind, of course, there's statutory requirements already in place. We'll have to look at the municipal development plan and other policies that are guiding development in Lloydminster. We want to come up with things that work, things that are going to be beneficial for not only this area but the city as a whole. And we need to be able to facilitate stakeholder engagement because there's a number of people that are going to have to weigh in on this. And again, we need to listen to in order to make sure at the end of the day it has to be something that works for everyone. We need to maximize efficiency in here and provide a comprehensive framework for future development that will actually reflect the goals and objectives that we hear as we go through the process. The vision for the plan, a lot of these came out of the request for proposal, and we'll be looking about what people, complete communities, sustainable development, those are things that mean different things to different people. And going through the engagement process, we're going to find out what those things are and then balance those to come up with something for a comprehensive plan. This, of course, is the plan area, and this will be our starting point. Already we've started looking at what some of the constraints in the area are. We'll be looking at the environmental issues. We'll be looking at physical constraints and for the different uses that are proposed in here. So we'll be taking all of the information we get from the technical people and the engineering, transportation, and basically overlaying all that information on here so that we can see what we're dealing with and see what uses logically go in which spaces and how we can make that all work together. This represents the key players in putting this together. Of course, Mitch and I are both planners. We'll be working, we have a public engagement team that will be coming in to have a stakeholder workshop and an open house during the process. Market analysis, we're partnering with Urbanics out in Vancouver, who they've done quite a bit of work in Alberta, and we work often with them. So they'll be doing market demand analysis in here. The transportation and servicing, there's engineers, our engineers, and of course your engineers as well, working together to make sure that we're looking at the right standards, that we have the right infrastructure in place to be able to accommodate what the plan will have. And then an environmental analysis to see what's on the ground. This is an example of one of the projects that we worked on previously, just to give an idea of how we worked on a similar plan. This was an outline plan, which is perhaps a little more detailed than an area structure plan. This was in Leduc, and it was a section of land that was owned by a developer and the city, 50-50 split. And of course, they had different goals and objectives for the lands. They identified 3 different use areas. They wanted a main street and a commercial area that would be a regional draw for commercial. The city needed to have an area for 2 high schools and a recreation center, and that was a recreational precinct, and the developer wanted to do the traditional, basically single-family residential development. And at the end of the day, we needed to draw a line through it so that they could subdivide, and 50% of the lands went to the city and 50% to the developer. So there was a lot of juggling and a lot of coordinating with the different stakeholders, and at the end we came up with, this was the plan we came up with. One of the things we felt was very successful, there was no one objected to it at the public hearing, and council actually commended the team for listening, so we're really quite proud of this project. Another project we've worked on very recently was the Goldfinch Area Structure Plan for the County of Wheatland. And again, this was an area where there were already a lot of industrial uses. And they wanted to identify a corridor so that you didn't have encroaching country residential development coming in and having a lot of conflicts in uses. So this was an attempt, it's a very large area, and it protects the existing country residential, but it puts forward policies that future industrial growth will go within this area. The work plan, you're not meant to read this. It is in the proposal, and I'm sure you've seen it. I know on the slide it's not legible. The plan on the left was what we had in our proposal, and we've taken that and basically put it into calendar form. We know there's some urgency in proceeding with this plan, and our target date of completion will be October. So what we've done is set up regular meetings with your administration and with the technical advisory committee, and we've gone through each of the phases so that we know what the deliverables are and when we need to accomplish that in order to make that date at the end of October. And that's all I have for a formal presentation, but I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, Council? Council Torson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Keep in mind that this is not exactly my field of expertise, but is this the absolute kind of fastest that this can be done? Like, we want it done well and done right, don't get me wrong. But I'm just curious if October is kind of par for the course of doing things relatively quickly.
I think it is. We have, because there's so many studies that are going to be done. First of all, we have to examine all the background information and come up with, we're hoping to have a preliminary design concept done by about mid to late April. And then after that, then you have to go in and have the transportation board look at it, your engineers to make sure the servicing, just to ground truth, I make sure it works and have it circulated so that it can be refined. In that process, there will be the engagement with the stakeholders. Later on, after the concept comes out, then there'll be the open house. And all of those, it becomes an iterative process so that as you get that input, you can refine the plan. So at the end of the day, you come up with something better than what you started with. And I think by the summer, it'll be ready to be being prepared to come forward to you. But because of the advertising requirements and circulation periods and things like that, I think probably the end of October is realistic.
Okay.
If you tightened it up by any, I don't think you would save more than a couple of weeks to do that. It's pretty standard. In some municipalities, this will take 18 months. So it's just because it is an iterative process, it just takes time for people to be doing their reviews and then tweaking the plan as you go.
Okay. So that is what it is, so that's fine, and I'm not faulting anyone for that.
Yeah.
It's just, I think we had this on our budget last year, and, you know, through different staffing issues, didn't get around to getting our RFPs out until later, so, you know, we have some neighbors and such that, you know, have no idea what they're allowed to do and things like that, so it's just some difficulty in terms of managing those relationships, but at least we're and we'll have an answer, you know, by the end of 2019 for sure, so.
Well, I think as we get to the draft stage, I think it'll start to give you an idea of where it's going.
Right.
And it still needs some polishing, but
Okay,
we can move forward.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Sue, I have one. Certainly appreciate the stakeholder. We're going to engage our own residents and business people, but also our neighbors in March. I think that'll fit their schedule. As I look at what you're scheduling an open house for late July, I'm hoping that we can have 2 open houses because you know the summertime is precious to every family and individuals when they have their holiday time. So I think that one comment I'd send back, if it's possible, is to schedule 2 open houses over 2 weeks, or you know, get at least some window in there so that people have the opportunity and go from there. Because I just hate to see people come back and say, "Well, I'm sorry, we held it in the summer." And it's just the way this whole picture, as we've just talked about.
I think typically we try not to schedule an open house in the summer. We like to wait till about mid-September. But given the timelines on this, it just...
Yeah, absolutely. And I think working with, through Sam and then through our communications team and making sure that that information gets out to residents and businesses and people of interest from the city's perspective, and making sure that we give them as much help and advice as we can. And those are, and if they have a serious interest, they'll be here for it, I'm sure, but I just like to at least give them 2 opportunities if they have.
Absolutely.
Terrific. Any other comments, thoughts? Councilor Torsten.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not positive whether this question's for yourself or one of the members of our executive. I'm just curious on, because some of the areas, I believe they're like right just north of Exhibition, is one of the areas where there's some kind of contingent, hold on. Just one second. My apologies. Never mind.
Any other questions, comments? Well, thank you very much, Sue, for taking the trip out today and meeting with our staff and bringing this presentation forward. The community is curious because certainly it's an area that's today cultivated fields. People are looking forward to seeing what will spring up from that. We've got a golf course back there, and a few other interesting things, so I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest from you.
Okay, well, we look forward to being back here to present the final deal to you, so.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Returning back to the agenda, the city manager for 6.3.1.
Thank you, Your Worship, to present the Board of City Métis Society property tax exemption application. I'll ask Scott Perry to come forward once again.
Good afternoon again.
Good afternoon.
Subject matter is the Boulder City Métis Society property tax exemption application. Our recommendation is that council approve the property tax exemption for the Boulder City Métis Society for the downstairs portion of the property for a 2-year period that will qualify for exemption under the nonprofit organization property tax exemption policy. Administration is seeking a decision for the downstairs portion of the Boulder City Métis Society property tax exemption application for 5009 48th Avenue to enable the assessor to update the annual assessment roll. Some backgrounds: the council approved the property tax exemption for the Boulder City Métis Society for the upstairs portion of the property at December 17, 2018 regular council meeting based on the information provided to administration at that time. Council requested administration obtain additional information about the uses of the downstairs portion of the property. Administration reached out to the organization to obtain clarification on the uses of the downstairs portion. The Boulder City Métis Society replied with information on the downstairs portion being used over 60% of the time for charitable and benevolent use purposes. Administration has received the additional information from the Boulder City Métis Society and concluded that the downstairs portion would meet the qualifications of the policy and copyright regulation. Our options: that council approve the property tax exemption for the Boulder City Métis Society for the downstairs portion of the property. This will qualify for an exemption under the nonprofit organization property tax exemption policy for a 2-year period. This will align with administration's interpretation of the policy and the copyright regulation based on additional information provided. Or option 2 is that council not approve property tax exemption for the Boulder City Métis Society for the downstairs portion of the property. This option would not align with may not align with administration's interpretation of the policy and the copyright regulations. Government's administration contacted Alberta Municipal Affairs for clarification on the intended interpretation of copyright regulations and budget implications. Decision on this exemption would have the assessment code updated for the assessment roll. Total tax on this property for 2018 were $4,260.02, including $3,092.70 in municipal levies, $1167.32 in education levies. Decision on this exemption will allow administration to calculate an accurate bill rate to account for whether the property is exempt or not. Pass it back to you, Your Worship, for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Scott. Questions or comments from council? Councillor, thank you.
Well, I think that you guys did a great job on doing the homework on this, and they've met all the criteria, so I wouldn't see why that we wouldn't allow that to happen.
Councillor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I appreciate us kind of circling back on this one. My gut told me that there must have been some confusion, and it sounds like at the end of the day that there was a little bit of confusion, and that now this small not-for-profit is not having to pay $4,200 or somewhere that they potentially would have been having to pay, which for a lot of small not-for-profits is critical to their funds year in, year out. So thank you for looking into it again, and yeah, thank you.
Any other comments? I'll echo the same comments, Scott. Thank you very much to you and our staff for following through as council had asked to go back again and just ensure. I know that sometimes there's discussions and people are unsure of what we're asking, and I appreciate you folks going the extra way and distance from that perspective. And now we've got them as well onto that calendar of 3 years with this 2-year exemption if it's approved, and that will be greatly appreciated, I'm sure, by the Métis Society, because that's money that has to be raised some that comes out of programming if it's not, if we don't give them the exemption. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, I'll look for direction from council. Councilor Blanchard.
Move that council approve a property tax exemption for the Board of City Métis Society for the downstairs portion of the property for a 2-year period that would qualify for exemption under the non-profit organization property tax exemptions policy.
Seconder. Councilor Fagin. Any further discussion or comments? Not seeing any. I'll call for a question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Scott. Moving on to agenda item 6.3.2, City Manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. To present the governance documents policy, I'll ask the city clerk to present.
City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The item we have before is the governance, before you is the governance document policy, and the recommendation is the council approve policy number 120-01, the government document policy. The City of Lloydminster currently has 171 bylaws, 59 policies, and 7 directives. Traditionally, the bylaws are reviewed as needed, and while policies have review dates, these dates were historically not tracked or monitored. This has led to governance documents that are outdated and no longer reflect the best current practices. On January 22nd, 2019, the Government Priorities Committee received a presentation from administration outlining the governance document review schedule, which will be set in place by draft policy number 120-01. The schedule is in addition to the review schedule, draft policy number 120-01 set in place guidelines and responsibilities for the creation and review of governance documents. Nothing in the draft policy prevents council or administration from reviewing the governance documents sooner than required by the review schedule. The policy also allows administration to correct spelling and grammatical errors in governance documents without requiring council's approval, as long as such corrections do not change the spirit or the intent of the document. After reviewing the draft policy number 120-01, the Governance and Priorities Committee had no concerns and recommended the policy come forward to council for decision. Council's options are to approve the policy as presented, modify the policy and approve it, or send it back to administration. Governance implication is this is a new policy and the directive will create a systematic review process for all governance documents. Back to you, Rich.
Thank you, City Clerk. Any questions or comments from council? Document was presented, Council Patrick.
Yeah, I just add that I think this kind of a document is really important, and an organization has as many bylaws and policies and directives and the like, and what this does is sort of helps keep it organized, on track, and in a framework that causes you to deliberately have to go back and review it. I think quite often organizations will sort of ignore, and the busyness of the work of the day takes over, and they forget to go back and sort of review those policies to see whether in fact for instance, with the MGA changing, what are the implications for any of the bylaws and our policies, et cetera, those pieces can become part of ongoing work that we have. It can lead to reduction of policy, reduction of bylaws, but also what it does do is sort of keeps them fresh, and I think that's really important. We are rules-based, and we follow rules in terms of all the work that we do.
Any other questions or comments? I agree with Councillor Diachak. We certainly have no shortage of bylaws that need to be updated, because without a bylaw being current, it doesn't do much good. But the bottom line is the policies and procedures, and we've seen that as this council over the last 2 years. I believe we've started to tackle some of the governance issues, and in essence, every bylaw is a governance issue because it's the laws that govern our cities. So appreciate administration bringing this forward. I know they've got a review schedule that they have provided, and I expect that as it progresses, it will be updated as council as you make it through the various quarters. I know there's goals to try and work away at it. We know the priorities will adjust throughout the year, so looking forward to the work that's being done in that department. Any other comments? Not seeing any. I'll look for direction from council.
The council approved policy number 120-01, the governance document policy.
Seconder, Councilor Monroe. Any further questions or comments before I call for the final question? Not seeing any. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to 6.5. Community development. City Manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. To present purchase of land from Eastwood Holdings, I'll ask Don Stang, Executive Manager of Community Development, to present.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Before you have an RFP for the purchase of land from Eastwood Holdings. Administration seeking recommendation from Council to approve the subdivision and purchase of 5.8 acres, part of section or quarter section 2, Township 50, Range Road 28, West 3rd Meridian, from Eastwood Holdings for a total purchase package value of $192,000 to be used to expand the veteran land area parking lot. The City of Lloydminster was approached by Eastwood Development to purchase proposed 0.58 acres and recognized the opportunity for future development of the Veteran Land Area Parking Lot, the VLA parking lot. The current VLA is constructed over decommissioned landfill. Purchasing the 0.58 acres from Eastwood Holdings creates an additional buffer between the location and residential housing. Further, the acquisition of the 0.5 acres adjacent to the existing VLA parking and municipal reserve will increase parking supply, help to reduce parking congestion and spillover parking into the surrounding neighborhood. Two options before council are to approve the subdivision and purchase or to request additional information from administration. This is an item that was previously discussed with council, and before you we have the finalized sale, and details of that can be provided if needed.
Thank you, Executive Manager Snape. Questions or comments? Councilor Torson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I just want to say that, you know, based on the area and everything, as far as parking goes, I know it can stretch all the way to ES Laird School on a regular Wednesday night, so this is probably a good call, you know, especially if you have to walk down the road with small children and things running all over the place. From a safety perspective, I think in the long run we'll be a lot further ahead by getting this property. Thank you.
Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. Of course, it notes that we're going to have to come up with some funding to actually make it a parking lot once we actually go ahead with the purchase, should we decide to do so. Is there a timeline that you guys have thought about associated with that? This year's budget, next year's budget? Any thoughts?
Thank you. I would anticipate it would be 2020 budget consideration, as there's some trailers that need to be moved off, and there's a timeline until the deal gets finalized and everything else. So it would be potentially fairly tight to get it under this year's budget. I would assume that we would bring that forward in the 2020 budget.
Right, I'm just thinking about that in consideration of the 2020 summer games and those fields most likely being used for things there, and anticipating perhaps having that parking lot ready before the 2020 games.
I would anticipate we should be able to complete that prior. There shouldn't be a whole lot of work to do.
No.
It's relatively flat.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Councilor Buckingham. You have a question, so it's good. If there's no further questions or comments, we'll look to council for direction on 6.5.1.
Your Worship, can I just backtrack for a second?
Certainly.
I just trying to think this. The purchase price, so we had an appraisal of land. I realize there's not a lot of choice. Take it or leave it. But, and I'm not opposed to it. I just wondered how we were sitting opposed to an appraisal.
To the city manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. We do have an appraisal completed on this, and we are paying above appraised value, but we have looked at it from a complete package from an administration perspective. Like I said, we have previously discussed with council, and this fits in our purview to move forward with that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. All right. I'll look for council for direction. Councilor Fagg.
The council approved the subdivision and purchase of 0.05 acres, part of section East Quarter, section 2, Township 50, Range Road 28, west of 3rd Meridian, from Eastwood Holdings for a total package value of $192,000 to be used to expand the Veteran Land Area parking lot.
Seconder. Councilor Monroe. Question, Councilor?
Yeah, sorry, did he say 191 or 192? He said 191. Never mind. Yes, Mr.
Nope. It's all good. We want to be sure that we got it right for the record.
Yeah.
All right. Seconder, any further questions or comments before going for the question? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to 6.5.2. City Manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. To discuss 6.5.2, the recreation access policy, I'll ask Patrick Lancaster to come forward.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon, Council. Can you hear me okay? Thank you. We're bringing for approval policy 551-002, the Recreation Access Program Policy. I presented this policy to GPC the previous week, and the policy essentially establishes the criteria by which the City of Lloydminster would offer a reduced rate to membership and admissions to our city facilities to members of the public that fall under the low-income cutoff, as established by Statistics Canada. The policy, we worked again on the policy in 2018 when the social needs assessment identified that 20% of residents were facing financial barriers to participation in recreation. As part of the May 28th regular council meeting, council directed administration to work on directives out of the social needs assessment, including developing a program or process by which financial barriers to recreation could be removed from low-income residents. After completing research with other communities, it was determined that it's a fairly common practice for municipalities to offer a discount to low-income residents on municipal access. And after consultation with some of our local service providers, we landed on a program model by which we would offer a 75% discount on memberships, $2 adult admission, and $1 child and youth admission to city recreation facilities. It's anticipated that there are 1,800 residents in Lloydminster who would fall under the low-income cutoff established by Statistics Canada for a community of our size. Of those, once the program is fully up and operational, we could anticipate anywhere from 350 to 700 residents, though our initial projections for the program are probably lower if approved. We may be able to see 180 or so within the first year. For in the future, administration will examine the feasibility of including municipal recreations within the model, as well as other ways that it could be potentially improved and adjusted by changing the eligibility thresholds or fee structure once participation data is collected. So once the program's run for a while, we'll have a better sense of what the public uptake is and what ways in which we can improve the program. Following the January 22nd Governance Priorities Committee meeting, the following addition was made to Section 4 of the policy. The City of Lloydminster shall work with community partners to deliver and raise awareness of the Recreation Access Program. So it's our intent in the delivery of this program that we'll work with the local nonprofits, schools, and service providers to ensure that we're able to reach the residents that would be most affected and benefit the most from the program, and build those partnerships with them in the delivery of the service to the residents. So there are different options for the policy. Council approved policy 551-002, the Recreation Access Policy. That Council approved the Recreation Access Program user fees. That Council not approved policy 551-002, Recreation Access Policy and Recreation Access Program user fees, where the Council direct administration to gather more information to present at a future Council meeting. Any questions?
Thank you, Patrick. Councilor Joseph.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just had one question on this program. And I understand the kind of population segment that we're trying to target with this program. I'm curious how university students and college students fit into the mix based on the thresholds that we have. Just because you only work 3 or 4 months of the year. My understanding was there was a separate price for college students, university students, but it's how that fits into the mix. Because you could be living with, mom and dad still, and you still file your taxes on your own. But then there's some confusion as to whether or not it belongs in this program, or if it's still separated out here. And then from a practical perspective, is it possible to separate those things out?
Thank you. In our initial draft of how the program will roll out, we would exclude post-secondary students from the program, with the exception of post-secondary students that have dependents. So if there is a post-secondary student that has dependents that they're financially responsible, then we might look at them being able to access the program. But if they don't have those dependents, and an example might be a student here at Lakeline College, as part of their tuition in the program with the college, they have access to city recreation facilities that they get already as part of their tuition program. So our hope is to try to target those that would need the discount the most, and we'll see once we roll it out. We may run into some exceptions where we have to take a closer look.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to make sure that there is something built in there, just because there, could easily be some confusion, because I can definitely remember years where I only made $12,000 that summer, and I could have been qualifying for this, low cost because I was living with my parents. But it isn't necessarily for the purpose of this activity, so it's good to hear that there's something built in already. I didn't think to ask at our last meeting. But otherwise, as I said before, I think that this policy in general is great, and it's going to be very helpful. And I think there's I don't know how big the uptake will be, but hopefully it's done in a way and presented in a way that we get a good uptake. And at the end of the day, I think with like I was talking about before, income mobility in our community. So from one generation to the next, individuals most of the time make more than their parents did. So if you're in a lower tax bracket or in a bottom tax bracket, you can move up to, a top 15, top 20% tax bracket in one generation. That's something kind of unique about this area of the country. And it's really important that we, provide all those quality of life things for people throughout their lives, because at the end of the day, when they do some training, come back, go to work, they're going to come back to Lloydminster and want to make it their home because they have that connection that they feel with it, with Lloydminster. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments?
Thank you. I was just going to add to that, I guess, that when we make available the use of our recreation facilities and youth engage and partake in them, we know where they are. They're involved in positive activities, and investing in something like this is, I think, being proactive as a community. The alternatives are a lot more costlier than what we have in front of us here today, so I think this is a really positive step.
I would echo those sentiments exactly. I think this is a great starting point to evaluate a program that's been brought forward by two departments within the city to make improvements to our city. And I think that youth or adults, if we can offer a healthier living and indeed ensure that their time is more well spent and productive for themselves, I think it will be benefits to the community all the way around. So thank you again for creating this, Patrick, and leading the charge. And we supported the needs assessment, and this is one of the results, and this is just a perfect example to help reinforce why we needed to go through that process of the needs assessment that we led, and some of the results, and we'll hope to see more deliverables come forward. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Worship. First of all, I'd say it's a great policy. We know that many people are struggling right now, and this will give all kids and families a chance to enjoy what we have in our community. But I just have one question. I asked it at the Governance Priority Committee meeting last week. Was our recreation facilities, our major facilities, are financed by the city, but there is help from individuals that are surrounding communities, like the county and the 2 RMs. And we got a lot of kids that live outside the city limits that come to school in Lloyd and do everything they do. in the city of Lloyd, and I just wonder if the county and the two RMs wanted to participate in the program from a partial contribution, so that if we have kids outside the boundary within those 3 jurisdictions, that they might too enjoy some of the facilities in the city a little bit better than they might be able to right now. But it's based on the idea that the RMs and the county would subsidize the difference, just like the city is going to do along the way. So I just wondered if that wasn't necessarily in this motion, but how we get it in the motion, or how we debate it, or how would you like to follow it. But I think it's important. Thank you.
I think, Councillor, from looking at it from my position as mayor, I think that it's an opportunity for myself and city manager, we dialogue with the respective municipalities, Reeve and administration. I think it's an opportunity to start a dialogue and go from there to let them know about the program, because I think that's one of the things I've heard from our rural neighbors is they'd like to hear about what we're doing. Ideally, they'd like to hear about it before we get to it, and this came together fairly quickly. So I'll be sharing this with the neighboring municipalities and encouraging them to consider stepping up to the plate if they'd like to, so that we can be a more inclusive community. Because I think that's really what it comes down to from that perspective is that I think it's intended for the residents of the city today, and I appreciate very much what you're saying, that we are a much larger area, and we've talked about this often at this table, why we need to do that. But I think this is one that I'll certainly pick up and be talking to the city manager and ensuring that we share that with our neighboring municipalities and say, this is what we're doing. Is there a possibility that we were interested in working with that and then working through Patrick and from that perspective? So I think this is one we'll take away due to the short time frame from being presented last week at GPC, but certainly it's added onto my list of questions and items of ongoing concern and issue that might be of interest to the rural neighbors. Because, as you say, the closest swimming pool is North Battleford or Vermilion, and as an example, from that perspective. So I'll take that one on from my perspective and start a discussion, because it really starts with a discussion and between administration and I believe in Mayor Reeves, and to see if there's an interest in that possibility.
Thank you, Your Worship. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Pat.
Councilor Monroe.
Sorry, you may have mentioned this already. With any new program, there's bound to be hiccups along the way. When do you plan on reviewing the policy and seeing if there is what hiccups you do have to account? Is there a set timeline that you're planning on reviewing it, or just as they come up?
Thank you. I feel with this program, there will be a little bit of patching on the fly, particularly if there are urgent things that we did not consider that pop up. However, I do anticipate after a year of operation of the program that there's an expectation that we generate a report on our numbers, on our usage, and it takes some time to consider if there are some bigger fixes that we need to implement in either the policy or the procedure.
Perfect. And after that, when your implementation, you'll be coming back to council with a report on how it has worked.
Most definitely.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any. I'll look to council for the recommendation on the draft recreation and access policy. Councilor Baker.
Your Worship, that council approved policy number 551-002, the recreation exit policy.
Seconded. Councilor
I'd like to make a second motion.
Well, I think we would want, I'll just look to the city clerk, can we do that in one motion for both of them, or if they, what's the direction? Because I noticed on the recommendations it showed 1, 2, 3, 4, so.
The user fees are listed separate online.
Yeah, they're listed separate, so we can do these two separate motions.
Yeah, so I'll deal with the first motion, Councilor, and I'll come back to you for the second one. All right, so we have a seconder on the motion. Any further questions or comments? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councilor Baker.
Thank you. That council approved the recreation access program user fees.
Seconded, Councilor Torson. As presented, Councilor, if you're Councilor Baker. As presented, if that's agreeable. Yes, they are presented. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Seconder still good with that? Any further discussion? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Patrick. All right, moving on to 6.6, operations. Look to City Manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. To discuss the golf course irrigation system upgrade, Phase 1, contractor selection, I'll ask Blake Nielsen to come forward to present.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We're asking that council award the golf course irrigation system upgrade Phase 1 contract to Double D Industries Aqualawn Sprinkler out of Mission, BC in the amount of $407,000 and $407,995 plus GST, including a 10% contingency allowance in the amount of $40,799 to be allocated from the 2019 capital budget from the Lloydminster Golf and Curling Center irrigation system upgrade, and that Mayor and City Clerk be authorized to sign and seal all the necessary documents. The issue is the existing irrigation system has exceeded its life expectancy, has regular piping and sprinkler failure, and can no longer irrigate the golf course effectively. I'll skip through some of this background. It's pretty self-explanatory, and go down towards the bottom. A new irrigation system to replace the existing system was designed with the provision to have the new system installed over 4 or 5 phases. This is agreed upon by the golf course management and the irrigation designer that the most significant improvement would be the replacement of the limited existing mainline piping and the creation of a complete mainline piping system. The piping system entails Phase 1 and 2 of the phased-in new irrigation system. A request for tender was sent out for the newly designed irrigation system, was issued in November, and there were bids received. The bids were reviewed for correctness and price, and as you can see in the chart there below, Double D Industries and Aqualawn Systems was the most cost-effective bid. Our options here are that council award the golf course irrigation system upgrade Phase 1 contract to Double D Industries Aqualawn Sprinkler of Mission, BC in the amount of $407,995 plus GST, including a 10% contingency allowance in the amount of $40,799.50 to be allocated from the 2019 budget, capital budget, for the Golf and Curling Center irrigation upgrade, and that Mayor and City Clerk be authorized to sign and seal all necessary documents. Option 2 was that council not award the golf course irrigation system upgrade Phase 1 to Double D Industries of Mission, BC for the amount of $407,000. Option 3, that council request administration bring back further information to a future GPC meeting, and however, this option may not guarantee material availability, and there could be a material cost increase.
Thank you, Blake. Questions, comments? Councilor Torson.
Thank you, Your Worship. My first question is just on, because in the budget we have $626,000 for Phase 1 and Phase 2, and this is just for Phase 1 as I understand it. Is this in about the ballpark of how much we thought Phase 1 would be, and then Phase 2 would be around $200,000 mark?
It's a little higher than we expected. They expected with Phase 1, but we believe that if we, once we award this and we work on Phase 2, that we can come in under that $626,000.
Okay, yeah, perfect. So Phase 2 was expected to be a bit higher, but now we're thinking we may be able to do a little bit lower.
Yeah, we believe that if we straighten out, that we can kind of get Phase 2 in and hopefully integrate it with Phase 1.
Okay. One other question on this is just the schedule itself. How does this affect the golf season, or are we talking, shovels in the ground in the next few weeks and this won't have any effect on it?
Until we award it, we don't have a final timeline on that, but the design is set up so that it had as minimal impact on the golf season as possible. it's set up so, like, we're putting in main lines right now, and it has a few crossing areas, but the design is more set to do it on the sides. And then once we get into the later phases, we'll be integrating into the actual fairways and greens and that.
Okay, so most of this is not happening directly on any fairway or particular hole?
No, there will be some effect, there will be some crossing, but we're not running dead center down the fairway and digging everything up.
Okay.
We're trying to minimize as much impact on the public as possible.
So under the assumption that council approved this today, what would be the expected date of completion within the schedule?
We expect to complete this season, is basically before it's like end of October kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it'll be going on the side of fairways during the golf season? Okay. One other question I was going to ask is just about, so is there, with this project, any improvements kind of to the course itself for some of like the low-lying areas and things like that that kind of puddle more often?
Yeah, no, this isn't the drainage one, this is just straight
strictly irrigation pipe going around. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor Dutchek.
So, thanks, Blake. So we have phase 3, 4, and 5 to go yet on the golf course.
Yeah.
And we can estimate the cost to be about the same for phase?
Yeah, the final estimate that I had seen was about 1.2 million.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councilor. Thank you.
Hi there, Blake. I'm just wondering, is it a given that these folks will receive the phase 2?
No, it's not. But they will have a competitive advantage because of mobilization costs and that kind of thing if they come in and do that. So.
And nothing they're putting in is proprietary at all?
No.
It's all okay. Thanks.
So I believe, like, I'm not sure if you had a chance to be more on the contract details, is ensuring that company, we've got 3 companies that are not local to the city, I believe, and 1 that is. So a business license would be required, I would suspect, in that contract, which is good news. Thank you for the great background. I think that, for myself, not being born and raised here, watching that golf course grow over time, it tells us that some of that stuff's been in the ground a long time. There's been changes and additions in the back 9 holes when it was added. So thank you for that background. I think that gives us an idea that this isn't something we fixed last year or 2 years ago, and all of a sudden we've got to go back and refix. This has been in the making for a long time, and we know anytime you start doing as much work as they've got to do without tearing up our golf course, it's going to be expensive. So thank you for that. So I think, and then the answer, the question Councillor Thorson asked, I had the question in 2019, but saying back to 2020 summer games, we'll likely work around this 2020 summer games so that we're healed up, as they say, in the grass.
Yeah.
Everything will be as in good shape as we can.
Yeah, no, like I said, the design of this replacement was to have minimal impact on the public. So.
Excellent. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, I'll let the council for direction or recommendation. Councilor Dutchek.
The council award the golf course irrigation system upgrade phase 1 contract to Double D Industries Limited DBA Aqua Lawn Sprinkler of 10141 Slave Street, Mission, BC, V2VOB1 in the amount of $407,995 plus GST excluding PST, including a 10% contingency allowance in the amount of $40,799.50 to be allocated from the 2019 capital budget by Mr. Golf and Curling Center irrigation system upgrade, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign and seal all necessary documents.
Second. Councilor Campbell. Any further questions or comments before I call for the question? Councilor Baker.
Just one, and I might have missed it, Blake. The total package, golf course complete, best guess.
1.2 million is what first says. 1.2.
1.2 is the bottom line.
Yeah.
And that's
at this point. I mean, that may change.
No, but
as we go.
we gotta have a number.
Yeah. Yeah.
We gotta finish the job sooner or later. So
yeah.
We're not talking $3 million. That's what I'm saying.
No,
1.2 million plus or minus. Thank you.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks very much, Blake. Good luck with the project. Moving back to the agenda. That cleans up, I believe, all the operations and items from the administration. Up to the city manager, or sorry, city clerk for any correspondence or information items. Moving on to the mayor and council's reports. It's just getting back into the saddle here last week, as you council members know, and for the public, but certainly in the next couple of weeks we will be busy. City manager and I will be attending the mid-sized city mayor's caucus for Alberta cities, under 500,000 later this week. We'll be meeting with all 4 leaders of the major political parties in Alberta and having the opportunity to hear from them and share with them some of the issues and challenges that face municipal government. It will be my first time to have the opportunity to speak to the Premier directly, so I'm looking forward to that opportunity, as well as the various leaders of the other political parties. When this meeting was arranged, it was discussed that we would very likely be in with that solid red zone with the expectation of the provincial election. So we were looking forward to bringing back a report to this council and to the community what we're hearing from the various political leaders as the potential election looms in Alberta. Later on, we will be gathering in Saskatoon for SUMA, and there will be an opportunity to meet again down in Saskatchewan face-to-face in the cabinet, I believe, at the cabinet bear pit session, as well as an opportunity to discuss issues that are pertinent to our city and other cities and communities throughout Saskatchewan. So the next couple of weeks are going to be busy, but that will be good, as always. Other than that, we attended Friday night the appreciation for volunteers and sponsors of the Lloyd Exhibition Association, and it was great to see the number of people, and again, that make that organization run. Just like every other organization in this city, it takes volunteers and people to support in the sponsorship role, and certainly wanted to mention 2 individuals. Robert Lundquist is a 35-year member of the board of directors, and Robert was sharing with me that he has got many more years in before he actually got on the board of directors, and Bob Campbell has 25 years in, a local area resident as well as business owner in the community. I think it speaks volumes of the commitment that people make to that organization in the long term. And there's other organizations in the community with 35 years in board of directors, and it's a long time. 25 years respectively. So I want to just note that from this perspective. Any other reports from any of the councillors?
Your Worship, I attended the Malacca, and I believe it was the 45th year that the cultural celebration has been going on, and it was also a delight to bring Happy New Year's or New Year's greetings from our sister city in Ukraine as well. So the food was amazing, dancing was amazing, and a good time was had by all.
Any other reports or comments? Not seeing any, I'll move on to any other matters. A member of our executive team at the city will be leaving us shortly. This is his last meeting, public meeting, and I want to take the opportunity to thank Rodney for his service to our city. Rodney, it wasn't that long ago you joined us, but we appreciate the input and the contributions you've made to the city, the leadership you've brought. Your experience coming from another part of the country certainly adds a whole dimension. I believe that a lot of people in the city appreciate it very much. I know you're well appreciated at that table, the comments I've received and your input, because I think that's what makes our city a better place is the team that helps run it. The city manager reports directly to us, but I know we speak very regularly, as I do with all the ELT, and I wanted to personally thank you. I think on behalf of the council, say thank you from the council and the city for your efforts here in making our city a better place.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to add anything? Councilor Torson.
Just another item for any other matters. So
Right.
I almost asked a question earlier, and then I pulled back, and now I'm going to ask the question. So this is related to area structure plan. I'm just curious, how do the exhibition lands just on the north side of that, how are they affected when there's kind of some contingent deals going on there? So, you know, there's the deal contingent on the grant. So how is that included in this area structure plan, or are we working through that as we get news on whether or not they've been successful with the grant?
Yeah, thank you. The last I had contact with the Exhibition Association, granting agency had asked for some additional information, and the city helped them prepare that and send that back. So I'm not sure where they're at with the grant application. With regards to the area structure plan, we would take that into consideration that there is a pending sale agreement in place for that with the City of Lloydminster and the Exhibition Association, and it would be incorporated into the area structure plan.
Okay, thank you.
I'll add to that there is, I don't think a whole lot more information. I know the Exhibition Association has been pursuing information about the grant application, and it's still in process. They have not been denied an application, or the application, they haven't been approved either, so it's joining the club of applying for government grants. They're in the waiting cycle just like we are. So that's information. Are there any other matters? If not, I will look to Michelle with inquiries from the media.
Thank you, Your Worship. There are media requests for yourself, Mayor Alvarez, and
Councilor Thorson, thank you. With that, I'll look to council for...
Motion to recess.
Motion to recess. Seconded by Councilor Fagin. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.